We'll get into our mailbag in just a second, but first, subscribe to Chicago Bears Now. Never, ever miss a video here on the channel. All you got to do, hit that sub button and turn on notifications. You'll get notified when we post a video. We cover the latest Bears news, rumors. We do mailbags like this one and a whole lot more. More mock drafts coming your way. Hit that big red button and subscribe today. It's mailbag time here on Bears Now by Chat Sports. Benny S. leads things off. Could the Bears trade Allen Robinson and draft a wide receiver in the first round? This is a good question, and something a couple of months ago I would have actually said is more likely. The reason I'll say I don't think it will happen is, number one, he already signed his franchise tender. I think Allen Robinson realized quickly the wide receiver market wasn't that strong this year. I think he wants to go through this process again next year and hit the open market. And honestly, that's fine with me. Play things out with Robinson this year. See what happens. You've got a true number one wideout. Maybe you overachieve. Maybe you make the playoffs and win a game or two and you secure him long term. Or you could tag and trade him next offseason. And the reason I wouldn't trade him now is I don't think you're going to get a first-round pick for him anymore. I thought for sure heading into free agency you would if you wanted to trade Allen Robinson. I no longer am convinced that that is the case. Why? We saw the wide receiver market. It was not that good in free agency, so I don't think teams are going to trade a first for him. So what does that mean? I think A-Rob's here in 2021. I think he's going to play this out on the tag. I don't think the Bears will get a long-term deal done with him before the July deadline, and I think both sides are going to let this year play out and see what happens next offseason. See how much the cap goes up. See what type of team the Bears are and if they are a contender heading into 2022. If they're not, they'll probably trade him, let him go after this upcoming season. But I'm glad he's here this year because that leaves you in good shape at receiver. You've got Allen Robinson. You've got Darnell Mooney. You guys know me, Anthony Miller, Javon Wims. I'm kind of done with those guys. I do think drafting a receiver in the middle rounds makes some sense. If for nothing else, Allen Robinson insurance for the future. But I think he's here in 2021. I think that's the best outcome for both parties involved, especially with the cap going down this year. I think A-Rob and his camp figured out quickly that a major market just wasn't going to develop for him. So you play this year out, you see what happens next offseason. Should the Bears trade Allen Robinson? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Get your votes in on this one. I'm going to type my N for no unless the team offers you a first. Then at that point, you should at least consider it. Wiley Ferris with the super, appreciate that. What do you think about Caden Stearns for strong safety? You know, he was really good his freshman year at Texas, and then he never really improved. He was kind of the same guy throughout his career. Good athlete. He's fairly rangy. Not the best tackler, by the way. Middle rounds guy, I would say. Third, fourth round, I wouldn't hate it. I'd rather just get a safety in free agency. Bring back Tayshaun Gibson. He played well last year, so I don't hate it, but I don't necessarily love it either. John Elliott with the super. Sign Kenny Vaccaro. Cut Jimmy Graham and Charles Leno. Draft a tackle, receiver, and another tackle. Okay, Vaccaro at this point, it is what it is. He's not much. I would rather bring back Gibson or someone else. Cut Jimmy Graham. Maybe they seem like they want to keep him at this point. Maybe they're holding on to hope for a Russell Wilson trade because he and Jimmy Graham are tight. Definitely down to cut Charles Leno. Then, yeah, draft a tackle, draft a receiver. Works for me. A lot of that I definitely agree with. Steve, still have to restructure contracts or cut guys to sign the draft class. Pace is a clown. There's plenty of time to do that. No reason to panic. The teams do this all the time. They're hovering around the cap number right now. You cut Jimmy Graham. You can sign your whole draft class. You extend him. You can do the same thing. They've got flexibility. I would not worry too much about that. Thomas Aselli, Greg Rousseau from the Miami Hurricanes. Opted out this year and had a bad pro day. Not in round one, not taking him at 20. Maybe he's a guy that falls to 52 and the value is good. I could explore it at that point. Not taking him in round one, though. That's too rich for me. Follow me on Twitter for more Chicago Bears updates. And if we didn't get to your question on today's mailbag, ask me over there. I'm at HGramNFL. I'm getting a ton of DMs from Bears fans and NFL fans asking me questions, NBA fans as well. I get to them eventually, so continue to ask at HGramNFL. You can just tweet at me as well. I'll see them all in my feed. Give me a follow, ask me your questions, and I'll answer as many as I can over there. Next up is Henry Hipp. Trade up for whoever the 5th QB off the board is. And that could be the strategy for Ryan Pace. They could, him and Nagy in this front office could say, okay, top 3 guys are gone. Let's wait and see for that 4th guy to go, whether that's, Fields, Mac Jones, or Trey Lance. I think we're all on the same page that Lawrence and Zach Wilson are going top 2. If Jones is the 3rd guy, maybe you wait and see, okay, let's see who takes the next quarterback. And then, okay, if it's the 7th pick and there's 1 guy left, boom, let's try and make a trade with Detroit to go up and get Lance or Fields or whoever it is. That could be an option if you're comfortable with all 3 of those guys after the top 2. We'll see. This is going to be a big draft of, for a lot of teams, I think, especially ones who want quarterbacks, of you just got to let the dominoes fall because it's going to be a lot of quarterbacks in the top 10. Probably all 5 of those guys go top 10. White Phoenix, who is the likeliest prospect to fall to us? Who is, in terms of, I need more specifics there. Like, none of the quarterbacks are going to fall. I'd love a guy like Christian Darrisaw to be there at 20. I'm not convinced he will be. I think a sneaky player could be like a J.C. Horn or a Greg Newsome at 20, one of the cornerbacks. Maybe Caleb Farley falls to you. I don't think Slater falls to 20, so a lot of those guys that may slide a little bit probably aren't going to get to the 20th pick. Sway here. If the interest for Russ is heating up again, should the Bears go for Rashod Bateman at 20 and Leatherwood in the 2nd round? Well, if you mean the Bears' interest in Russ heats up, you're not going to have your 1st-round pick, but maybe you mean for someone else. I think Bateman at 20 is good value. I don't think you're filling your top need there. Leatherwood in round 2 is something I'd be fine with. 52 overall feels about the proper range for him. Liam Eichenberg, I would prefer him if he's there at 52. Not sure he will fall that far, though. Henry Hipp, do you worry that even with an 8-9 season, Pace and Nagy won't be fired? You can't rule it out. We saw it this year, right? It's all circumstantial, right? Like, if you go 8-9 with Andy Dalton and no young quarterback of the future, then you're in the same spot. But what if you draft Trey Lance, stash him for a year, you're competitive with Dalton, but you feel like Trey Lance can play in 2022 and take you to new heights? That's a different 8-9. Like, not all 8-9s are created equal. So if there's, a light at the end of the tunnel at quarterback, then maybe they do get another year. But if it's like last year where you go 8-8 and you've got Trubisky and Foles and no real answer at quarterback, you can't do that again. Like, that at that point, you have to fire Pace and Nagy. What place will the Bears finish in the NFC North? 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th? Oh, gosh, I'll spitball right now. It definitely won't be 1st based on what we know. I think the Packers will win it again. You'll be competing with Minnesota, I think. I'm going to say 3rd. I think Minnesota's in a little bit better shape right now than the Bears are. I'll say 3rd, but that could change after the draft, so we'll revisit this one. Get your votes in on this. Michael Kelly, we need a number 3 receiver badly considering Robinson's uncertainty and no one there. I agree, but I don't know if any team in the NFL is like, oh, if only we had a number 3 receiver. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice to have, especially in today's NFL. You could probably get by, with what you have. I'd prefer to upgrade from Anthony Miller, but you could make it work. I do think drafting someone in the 3rd or 4th round makes a lot of sense, and I do think that's something that Chicago will probably do. Should we go for a left tackle? Absolutely. Charles Leno is not the long-term answer. I don't care who it is, but it's got to be someone else. Appreciate the question, Rodrigo. JMP, oh yes. Hashtag Bears, hashtag draft Kellen Mond, hashtag Bears, Mondo Bears, hashtag Harrison Meltdown. If the Bears draft Kellen Mond before the 3rd round, I will be in shambles. There's no doubt about that. Subscribe, turn on noties. We'll be live during the draft. If it happens, it's going to be lit. It's going to be a fun time, but not fun for me. Torian Whitfield, if Ryan Pace is going to move up, why wait till draft night and not move now? I think I think you have a good point in the sense that things are happening, right? You saw the 49ers move up to 3, but I think the difference here is it's going to cost them more than these other teams that need quarterbacks. Like, sure, the 49ers spent a lot to get to 3, but they were already at 12. Bears are at 20. That's a lot of moving parts to move up into the top 5, top 8. So I think I'm sure they're calling. It wouldn't shock me if they were one of the teams that's reached out to the Falcons. But, you don't want to overpay necessarily. So you want to see how this plays out over the next couple of weeks and not rush into anything. Eamon Elias, you get the last word unless we get a super chat. Toney in the first, that's Kadarius Toney. Kellen Mond in the second, no thanks. I would take any QB in the draft over Kyle Trask. Look, I'm not super high on Trask. I'd rather take him than Mond. I think he's a safer pick. I don't know if he can be a long-term starter, but I think at worst he can be a good backup at a bridge type. I just don't like Kellen Mond. I don't know what to say, so sorry about it.